Hi, everybody. I'm Troy Bishop from Bishopp Family Farm in Deansboro, New York. Take these glasses off. I'm also a conservationist at the Madison County Soil and Water Conservation District, and I also do a bit of writing. So th this will be, and I live here in Central New York, just east of Syracuse, in between Syracuse and Utica, and I'm also the Nat GLC Northeast Resource Manager, so I'm covering 15 states in the Northeast region. The talk that I'm giving today is something that it was kind of tongue in cheek. We, uh, we meaning Jen Colby, myself, Brian Maloney, and Jake, we all um, thought about we should talk about mental health back in 2018 at a grazing conference. And people said, you don't talk about mental health at a grazing conference. And we found out pretty easy that what happened was I was standing outside the room um, and people were walking by. And they were walking by because at a grazing conference, no one wants to talk about mental health because if you come into the room, maybe you think, well, I've got maybe some mental health issues, maybe I got some problems, maybe somebody will see me in here. There is some stigma with going in a room, a small room. And then the other part of it is at a grazing conference, farmers like to do grazing stuff. So water systems, very popular. The pictures on the screen are actually from the day of our Vermont Grazing Conference, where you get a lot more folks coming to the silvopasture meeting versus the few handful of brave souls that came and heard us talk about mental health and farmer burnout, stress, and sharing our feelings and tears, trying to get some of this stuff out. So we had a handful of folks that were great. They were getting it, that they were a little burned out. We were a little burned out. So we had the first ever mental health talk at a grazing conference. And the reason that we did that is it was our own personal journeys that we wanted to share. And because most people in agriculture, or most people in general, don't see the backstory of farm life. They don't see the calf that perishes in the night. They don't see the financial pressures, the industry pressures, the price pressures, pressures for your time. Um, and the thing that has brought me to this point today is so we're a fourth generation farm here. Well, actually, we're going on our seventh generation or sixth generation, pardon me. And so we've been in farming a long time. And when I was working at the conservation district, um, I also found a career in doing media, communications. I also interviewed farmers for media pieces, and I've had a career now in freelance writing and photography for almost 20 years. And along that time, I've met a lot of farmers um, that were under stress. And so there has been, back in the day, back in 2010, I'll say 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, I live in dairy country. There's a lot of stress on dairy farmers with the price point, the weather, a lot of things that we fight and struggle with over here in the East, is pretty similar to but different contexts across the country. So I would write about it. And all these stories were true. And then the culmination was my friend John Suskovich and I did a couple podcasts, and we talked about melting down. You can see the link. He had a big meltdown, and frankly, I was having the same kind of meltdown. I was just burned out. I was tired. I couldn't get all the work done. We had financial pressures, just psychological pressures. It was sort of self-induced because we're kind of workaholic types. And so after after his meltdown, I'll say, I wrote a story for the Country Folks newspaper called A Farmer Meltdown. And for the entire year of 2018, that was the number one story in agriculture in that newspaper. No other news story eclipsed the amount of hits and views that the newspaper got. And so, again, back in those days, the price of milk, there was just a lot going on. The weather, I believe there was kind of in that time period, there was either too wet, we had dry periods. And so along this line, we've had a lot of farmer burnout, farmer stress, a lot of stories that I was at the tables to hear about. And then I was able to put those into words and try to get the word out about mental health and how to get help, which is a little ironic because I had a turning point where one morning I was working with a farmer, a dairy farmer, and he was going through some marital issues and definitely financial stress because the milk price was really lousy. Uh, there was family issues, and so we must have shared a cup of coffee for at least a couple 3 hours, and then he called me again that later that day and said, I really need help. And so I got I basically kept asking him, how do you want to get help? Do you need somebody to talk to more than me? I mean, I'm just a conservationist, the grazing guy. Um, so luckily he called New York FarmNet and was able to get some help. He called me later and he had checked himself into a hospital, which really threw the milking of the cows a little bit in the tizzy. But you know what? He needed that break for a couple days to get himself squared away, and I think he avoided something a lot worse. Um, and then another a gentleman, we worked together all day. We went in for lunch, and then while I was eating, I must be I'm easy to talk to, or I was just there to listen. Service, us service providers, we're out in the field. We get to see the farmers, and people talk, and we need to have these conversations. So he basically unloaded a lot of his troubles onto me. He had his wife committed suicide. He wasn't sure what he was going to do with the farm. He wasn't sure he could go on. And for a couple hours, this wasn't really my job. I was just kind of wondering what the end point would be of this conversation. um so we I think we hugged and I said, "Look, you need help more than I can give." And I was at least there to listen. So this turning point, these stories, and there's many more. It was clear that I needed to get some training because was I the best listener? Maybe I was at that point, but I needed some tools, and I was seeing a lot of stress in the farm country, and I needed some help to be a better listener, and try to help the farm customers. And I learned that most help is a conversation away, and that's an important quote. You got to keep talking. And so probably over the last, well, since 2018 or even before, I've sought out mental health and suicide prevention meetings, what to look for, the signs to look for. I've actually covered it for the newspaper, which kind of is an interesting, I get to tell the story of it. But there's a lot of folks out there in not just New York, but other places that this is becoming, you know, funded, well funded now, not well funded, but funded where we get people that are a lot more um, involved than I am. New York FarmNet's been a great resource because they handle, family stuff and financial stuff, and get folks talking and get them the help that they need. I've done screenings of these YouTube videos that are pretty tough to watch for a farmer like myself, but sometimes you need to be reminded. So we do have resources. We try to get the help. So this has been great for my journey in the profession of conservation that I've been in. In my so in my personal life, which is sort of weird because I'm sort of caught. I go to I farm, then I go and I work with farmers, then I come home and I'm still farming, but I have a personal life. Well, in 2017, I got a call at 3 o'clock in the morning, and most of you know what 3 o'clock in the morning calls are like. They're never good. My brother passed away in North Carolina. So that was a pretty big turning point for me. Um, I remember Fred Provenza, not very long after he had a grazing conference here in New York, and he had hit me with the quote, "Is that all there is?" So, um, from 2017, basically till now, I have to say that Mr. Thornton hit it on the head. Half the time I'm happy, half the time I'm sad. So I was the man in the mirror that needed help to get to move on and get through this. So the funny part is, you know, I think it was 2000. It was probably a year later of grief and mourning. Um, I finally ended up at the doctor's for a physical, and she said, what's going on, or how you doing? And I said, I'm doing terrible. I'm burned out. I'm tired, and I cry a lot. So, um, I guess she diagnosed me with some what I don't what whatever she diagnosed me with. She had to have a diagnosis because for me to get insurance to pay for seeing someone, I had to have a diagnosis. So what that is, I'm not really sure. Maybe depression or anxiety. I don't really know. But the thing is I sort of learned the ropes of getting help, and for my journey, it's been a little bit weird. I was sent to the city, so Utica. Um, I learned when I got there, well-meaning people. Was meeting with a social worker or doctor or whatever. I sat in that room, the waiting room, and I looked on brochures for alcoholism, substance abuse, um, just a variety of things that did not fit my context. I thought, well, I need help with figuring out grief and moving forward. The thing is I learned that for me, that the folks trying to help me have no idea about farming. And so I went 3 times, and basically I went there and I talked with the psychiatrist or whoever, whatever doctor it was, and I basically told him about farming. It helped a little, but it was not for me. And so the power, the new approach that I took, because it didn't work. I tried it. At least I went and I tried it. I learned some stuff about myself to lower my guard. Um, and so my my new approach was just really an old approach. Is I leaned on my family, and my friends, especially my wife, Corinne, my good friends, Carl Palmer, Brian Maloney, and others. So, I would go and I'd pour myself out. They would listen to me. We'd maybe pour a dram of whiskey. We would share stories, we'd laugh, we'd cry, and it really did feel good to get it out of your system. Um, I listened to music in the quiet times. That helped a lot. Just kind of meditate a little bit. Um, I ended up becoming uh, the hardship and the grief, and the burnout. Um, I it really helped to write. So I would write stuff down, or I would create stories. You can read them on my website, thegrasswhisperer.com. Trying to figure out what grief is, my symptoms, but writing it down, purging, which, crying's really not that acceptable here in the United States. Um, I've obviously not done well today, but um, I got a box of Kleenex here. But that grief in the morning and the stress, you got to have a place to get it out of your system. So if a Kleenex is it, or you're coming out of your fingers, or you rely on friends and family, um, it's good because help is a conversation away. I got in touch sort of with my spiritual side. So, the little things like a dragonfly, um, a buck, white-tailed buck, just showing up like when I needed to feel a spirit. It was important for me to hold on to that. Um, and through this process, we came up with another mantra of trying to create fun or you won't have any. And that's where actually it circles back to a grazing conference. So, probably 10 years ago, I started, thank you, Greg Judy, and Holistic Management International, and some of my farmer friends. We developed a grazing chart. It's been pretty instrumental in trying to manage cows on land, but the main thing is we needed to pay homage to my brother, um, because we were going to do a lot of traveling together when we grew older. So the grazing chart and growing all this grass was really about um, figuring out the why and making goals happen. So the grazing chart right now is really more of a camping chart with cows added to it and recovery time so we can have the recovery times and lots of grass. So if we're having or if we have a family vacation, which right now we've had 26 days of vacation days during the grazing season, the more the better. That's a deliberate way to help reduce stress, which is part of our goal. Feed livestock well, feed the wildlife, give everything, plan for everything, and most of all, get quality time together. So the grazing chart has really been instrumental in figuring out how to get away. And when you have good recovery times and your cows are doing well, things things just seem to fall in place. I'm not as stressed out, not as burned out, generally speaking. Um, and we get this ecosystem health, and we have happier people, including myself. Do we have days where it's still pretty emotional? Absolutely. But we found through again, I've found, which I tell the others, we can't live on an island, and help is just a conversation away. So if you're feeling a little low, or you've got some financial issues, or you've got any issue at all, um, pick up the phone. Try to get a hold of somebody. If you got to call me or anyone at the conference, or you want to take us aside and say it was a good message, I'd like to talk to you. We're happy to have that conversation because it's really helped myself and allowed me to step forward and bring this message to you today. And thanks to all my friends there in the picture for supporting this journey. Thank you.